distinguished guests, distinguished panelists, a heartfelt welcome to this most important seminar on the issue of the missing, the profiles of the missing, the global challenge of missing persons and the role of International Commission, hosted by the Swedish Institute of International Affairs and the International Commission on Missing Persons. And these issues are most challenging for governments, for local communities, for families and individuals. And missing persons are not only found in war zones, but as we know from the Swedish experience, also as a result of national disasters. And with this short remark, I'd like to welcome two of the commissioners of the International Commission of Missing Persons, Ambassador Rolf Ekéus, who is a veteran Swedish diplomat with a long and distinguished career in international diplomacy, and a commissioner. Please.
Your Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, it is, I will express my gratefulness and thanks to the Institute, to the boss, Mats Karlsson, and to you, Bitte, for you taking on this challenging and very complex issue. And we are from the International Commission on Missing Persons, we are very excited that you could come and you could help us out. This is very complex issues, as you know. And we have assembled now quite a remarkable group of people to help us to understand and together see what can we do, how can we meet those challenges which has been forced upon us by so many evil things. So for us here, we have to listen to the experience of others. And it is a matter of the families of the missing will give us a reality check and give us the reality about things who are so difficult to understand that they happen, but they have happened. I said these issues are extremely difficult, but I think that ICMP, our organization, is not helpless, and we cannot be helpless facing those challenges. We cannot allow us to be helpless. And even if the issue is so difficult, what we have an opportunity, however, is they will help us to develop strategies and approaches to deal with these matters. They, of course, are humanitarian challenges, but also when you deal with them, you have to make other tools. The problems, how to approach them, are frequently diplomatic and geopolitical. We have to think in political and diplomatic terms. It's a matter, the issue missing person is a matter of peacemaking, or I would say conflict prevention also. If we don't handle that, we will not get peace. We have to address these issues with that in mind. And our policy in the ICMP is to, since more than 20 years now, to find strategies to challenge this issue. The first strategy, if I say the tools, are legal and institutional mechanisms. And there we are on the way. The second approach is cutting-edge technologies, including database technology. I must say, when I joined now many years ago as commissioner, I was struck by the fantastic quality and science which was adopted by the teams working in the ICMP. I'm really impressed. No one really can match that fantastic scientific skills on a very, of course, limited set of issues. But also, as we know, today we deal also, of course, with the missing persons, the relatives, the families who suffered so terribly. And we have to, what we are doing, what ICMP are doing, and we'd like to encourage you to understand us in that work, is to find way to justice and the right, give the right to the families, the right to reparation. It is, of course, the missing persons we have in memory, but it is of suffering, those who suffered, the families and those who we have to, these issues we have to address, also with the context I indicated of diplomacy and strategies. I'm quite happy that the Swedish government has made contributions to the global efforts of the ICMP, financially and in other ways. Of course, also legally in Sweden, heavily engaged in drafting and developing the ICMP treaty, which is quite remarkable. There is now an international treaty, formal treaty, established. And also, of course, now Sweden is, of course, now also a member of the ICMP conferences of state parties. The leadership in ICMP, and I say, is very, very impressive. And Catherine Boberger is a fabulous person, courageous, dynamic, not afraid of anything. So I must thank you very much again for that.
I think for the time frame here, we can try to.
You got
if you
much.
can, maybe.
No, I will just remind you that there is one special Swedish issue, the tsunami, and that also that ICMP was involved in that. Of course, Sweden has its own system of identification of its citizens, normally peace. But the ICMP team came in late, but they did a fantastic job, and also among the 550 Swedes who died in that catastrophe, they helped out in the end to identify those who we couldn't identify in other ways. And there were 52 Swedish victims identified by ICMP. I think one should be very grateful, and as a Swede, I'm very grateful for that. And now I think that the challenges are there, but we shall not be helpless. That's my finding was. I hope I stopped enough.
Thank you so much, Rolf. And so, we have the honor to invite another ICMP Commissioner, Your Majesty Queen Noor of Jordan.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you. Ambassador Ekéus, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to join my fellow commissioner in opening this discussion and to welcome all of you to what I trust will be a useful and thought-provoking evening. In the 16 years since I became a ICMP commissioner, the organization has been at the forefront of a revolution in dealing with the issue of missing persons, tragedies that number in millions and represent a challenge that the world would ignore at its peril. ICMP is emerging as an organization that can meet that challenge by addressing a critically undervalued cause of human suffering and national and international insecurity. There are many different reasons why people go missing: conflict, organized crime, natural and man-made disasters, and irregular migration are among them. Those who are left behind, however, share much in common. They experience the tormenting pain of loss. They need to know what happened to their loved ones. In cases where disappearance has been the result of criminal act, including war crimes, they rightly seek justice. In post-conflict societies, large numbers of missing persons mean that tens of thousands of people cannot move forward with the process of recovery, reconstruction, and reconciliation. They are tethered to a violent past by a tragedy that cannot be closed. In the context of migration, it means that there are tens of thousands of families who will never know the fate of their loved ones, who have been forced to leave their homes and who will likely never return. It is worth noting, too, that the majority of the missing from conflict are men, which means that women are often the ones who must struggle for their rights to the truth, justice, and reparations. Many of the women on our panel today can speak to these concerns from personal and professional experience and have been an inspiration to many women who are today engaged in that struggle. ICMP currently has programs in Colombia and Iraq, as well as in the Western Balkans, and is working with partners all over the world when its specialized expertise is required, as was the case when, as you heard, ICMP helped to identify almost 800 victims of the Indian Ocean tsunami, including 42 Swedish victims. The Commission is also launching a program to help families from Syria establish a system that will in due course be able to account for the missing from that conflict. When ICMP first began working in the former Yugoslavia, few imagined that it would be possible to account for many of the 40,000 who were missing as a result of the conflict. Yet today, more than 70% of these people have been accounted for, including almost 7,000 of the 8,000 victims of the Srebrenica genocide. This evening's discussion will, I hope, demonstrate that there are concrete, effective, scientific, legal, political, and social strategies that can be implemented. And this is how we can most constructively honor and remember the missing, and also how we secure the rights and futures of those who've been left behind. ICMP's Director General, Catherine Baumberger, is joined on this evening's panel by my fellow commissioners, Sanji Monageng from Botswana and Surin Pitsuwan from Thailand. Judge Monageng, who has been with the International Criminal Court since 2009, is able to speak with authority on the crucial connection between resolving cases of enforced disappearance and upholding the rule of law. Dr. Pitsuwan, a former foreign minister and ASEAN Secretary General, can place the missing persons issue in an illuminating geopolitical context. Rebecca Schustrand's engagement with the issue of missing persons due to natural catastrophe is deeply personal. One of her family members from Sweden was among those who were lost in the 2004 tsunami. Dr. Ilhan Kizilhan and Dalal Ali Khairo have first-hand experience of the evil of modern slavery that has been imposed upon the Ezidi community in Iraq. Members of Dalal's family have been tragically affected by this. Noura al-Jizawi is working on human rights issues related to the Syrian conflict, which continues to multiply its daily toll of dead and missing. Munira Subasic, whom I have been privileged to call my friend for many years, has worked tirelessly for more than a quarter of a century, accounting for the missing and seeking justice in the wake of the Srebrenica genocide. which first took me 20 years ago to that devastated region, and to the issue which brings us together this evening. I have been inside mass graves, witnessing ICMP's meticulous forensic analysis of barbaric crimes. And even more, I have been moved and uplifted beyond description by the survivors' faith and courage to move from trauma and grief to a powerful, effective commitment not to revenge, but to justice. Munira personifies that extraordinary spirit. It is a great privilege to be with you all this evening, and I wish you all an enjoyable and stimulating, and God willing, we will join together, all of us in this room tonight, to further the cause that will be so beautifully represented by these members on the panel.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Ekéus and Queen Noor, for setting the frame for our further discussion here and for introducing our panelists. The ICMP started its endeavors and work in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and therefore I'd like to start with Mrs. Munira, and with your huge experience in the field of finding out the truth and fighting for justice for families and of the missing. I know there are so many stories that you could tell us, but if we try to see into the maybe universal experiences that you different personalities share here, what are the lessons learned from Bosnia that you would like to share with others who are bereaved and victims of wars and disasters?
I would like to thank you in advance. I would like to thank you for your attention, for your trust, for your presence, and I wish God will remember your deeds. I'm representing not myself here, but I'm representing thousands of mothers who have survived Srebrenica genocide, who lost 1, 2 sons. Some of them lost all members of their families. I lost 22 members of family in Srebrenica genocide and more than 100 friends. But all those people who were killed are our children. They were our future and they were our life. I can say now that I would like to deeply, deeply thank the ICMP, because thanks to them, thanks to their work, many mothers have restored identity to their children. They are to thank that in Srebrenica, in Potocari, we have more than 6,000 persons buried with their names. Whoever is born, he has the right to have a tombstone upon his death, whether it be a cross or anything else. But if we don't find missing persons, then there are no graves. If a mother doesn't find a single bone of her son, how can she prove that she ever had a son? That is our mission. That is what we have been working on for the past 20 years. We have been searching for truth and we have been waiting for justice. And the biggest injustice is to be waiting for justice. ICMP has done more than any other organization present in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I must say that Catherine Bomberger, and I'm not saying this only because she's in the room, but she deserved not 1, but 10 Nobel Prizes for peace. I know that she hasn't been awarded one yet, but we mothers will do everything we can to correct this injustice. For a mother to have a single bone of her child, for her mother to know that her son is no longer a number, no longer a missing person, but a true person. You are parents, you can feel this, you know what I am talking about. But just try to imagine what it is like for us mothers to live day after day and not know where our children are. We mothers often say that we were killed in 1995 with our children, but we must go on for justice. We must go on to tell the truth. We must go on to tell these stories so that Srebrenica never happens ever again. Unfortunately, we see it in Iraq, we see it in Syria, we see it elsewhere in the world. I spent entire day with my dear friends, and I can say that most of them can be my daughters. And I gave them some advice we have collected after all these years. Because we have been working hard to wake up the world. And we were always supported by the ICMP. We were supported by the ICMP from the first day of this process. We were supported by the ICMP when we were trying to prove that genocide did occur in Srebrenica at the wake of 21st century. And all those who were sitting at high positions, who could have done something and who chose to do nothing, they should be ashamed. But there are always good people. There are always people who are willing to help us, who are willing to help ICMP to continue with its noble mission, to continue with its work, so that every mother, any mother, anywhere else in the world, whatever her ethnicity, whatever her skin color, whatever her religion, ICMP knows that they are only mothers and that they need to be helped. Help other mothers, help other families to find their children, to find their missing members. If you do one good deed, I think there is nothing better you can do. That's why we mothers of Srebrenica decided to raise our voice, not because of hatred, not because of revenge, but because we wanted people to learn about what happened. We wanted other people to have better future, happier future, for the sake of our children and for the sake of your children. We mothers who survived genocide, who survived rapes, who survived so many atrocities. I, as a mother, as a Bosniak mother, am here to tell you about it so that you learn about it. We decided to educate our children, because we realize that that's the only way our story will be told in the best possible way. We were not supported by our government, we were not supported by anyone, but today we have doctors, we have engineers, and only that way we can show to the rest of the world that we are proper mothers, real mothers, because none of our children decided to revenge, and that is very, very important. Our children saw their mothers being raped. They saw their fathers and their brothers being killed. But we succeeded in raising our children properly, in raising our children with love in their hearts and not hatred. It is hatred that kills. It is love that wins. In my organization, we were very successful, but only thanks to good people and only thanks to support of the ICMP. We have the cemetery. Our children are now rest to peace in this cemetery. Some of our children resting there have no skulls, some of them have no hands and arms, but still, thanks to Thomas Miller, thanks to Jacques Klein, they persuaded High Representative of International Community in Bosnia-Herzegovina to make a decision that our children are restored, that their remains are restored to Potocari, where they were killed. We decided to be persuasive. We decided not to give up. We knew what we want. We knew what our objectives were. When we would fall, we would rise again. We would stand tall and say we must stay united. We must sit with Serb mothers and talk to them. Maybe their brothers, maybe their sons were killing our children, but they are mothers as well. That is why we need to work with them. That is why we need to talk to them. Our truth is not in Sarajevo or Banja Luka. Our truth is in Srebrenica. And we must go back there. You know that we survived genocide under the protection of the United Nations. You know that everything that happened in Srebrenica happened before the eyes of the entire world. I always repeat that the world is responsible for what happened in Srebrenica. This problem has been brought upon us. And I would like to invite you to help ICMP to find the bones of our children, because that will help resolve many problems that Bosnia and Herzegovina is facing today. All peoples of Bosnia and Herzegovina want to live in peace. We want to prosper. But we need your support. We need your assistance. We must prevent crimes. We must raise our voice also to stop wars in Syria, in Iraq, because we cannot simply stay aside and look at what's going on there. We can't turn our heads away from it. It is our business. It does matter. We must think about these people. We must think about their lives. We must do whatever we can for these mothers and for their sons. You know that Dutch battalion was in Srebrenica in 1995 as part of the United Nations forces. We filed a lawsuit against them because nobody wanted to do that for us or on behalf of us. On the 26th of June, there will be a verdict, there will be a judgment, and we believe that it is time that people are held responsible for their deeds.
For this powerful, important reminder of Srebrenica and the importance of knowing like you told us earlier, the difference of having somebody who's missing and to have somebody who's declared dead is a bigger difference than having somebody who's dead or living, actually. And that gives a deep insight to us. Now I'd like to turn to our next speaker, Mrs. Noura Al-Jizawi, and you are from Syria. You are currently working in Gaziantep with an organization that you founded called Start Point Nukta Bidaya to raise awareness on human rights and gender issues in the Syrian conflict. You have yourself been disappeared in the Syrian jails and torture chambers for months. But nowadays you work with women victims. What are the main challenges as you see in your work?
Thank you all. Thanks to give me this opportunity to share the stories of people in Syria. Actually, not only myself from my family was disappeared. In the same period, me myself. After that, my father, my brother, my youngest sister. My youngest brother, he had been arrested 3 times. He spent from 7 years of revolution, he spent 3 years in jail. And the first time of disappearance was, he was only 16 years old. At that time, I can imagine the situation, how my mother and my sisters are managing the emotional situation. I was telling Munira yesterday and Catherine that I'm still avoiding open this discussion. I cannot imagine their situation and how myself and my brother, my sister, my father, how we harmed them. But sadly, it's not our fault. Currently, I'm working, when I released, I took the decision that I will not take this idea that I will survive myself. No, my case will not stop in this moment. I will start defending others' rights, and I worked as a human rights defender because I have in my memory all stories about my colleagues in primary school when I was asking them about their fathers, their cousins, their uncles, but no answer. I was a child. I was trying to imagine why there's a colleague in school, they don't have a father in their family, why this picture and this good image of the family is missing in some part. After that, I grew up and I read and I listened more to stories, horrible stories that happened in 80s. A lot of people still missing until this moment. It happened again in 2011. It started again, a new massacre. Actually, it's not happening only in jails or security branches. It's happening in forced displacement. It's happening in evacuations. It's happening even in migration. It's happening while people are trying to cross borders. But I took the decision to keep working on the issues of detainees and disappearance, particularly who are still maybe in security branches of regime. I'm focusing more on the issues of women because I feel like, sadly, we are missing even the opportunity to have justice for those women because a lot of them under the pressure of security forces or under the pressure of shaming by our community are refusing to share their stories. But I'm trying to support them. I'm trying with a great team. We are trying to help them. We are working currently on psychosocial support and we are working on research and we are trying to change maybe one day by the support from this great network, support from Munira and Rebecca and Dalal and all others, all those courage women. Maybe one day we can have those women in court and have justice for those women and all survivors, not only women, because we have missing children with their families. I have here some photos I want to share. It's only some photos for missing people. Those people, I know them personally. Here we have the family of Dr. Rania Al-Abbasi, her husband, and her children. All of them disappeared in 2012. Here we have Dr. Fatin Rajab. She's from Douma and she's still disappeared since 2012. Jihad Jamal, he's my friend and he's journalist. He had been arrested for 3 times and the fourth time he disappeared. Here we have Ali Osman. We had been arrested on the same day. I met him twice in security branch. After that, he disappeared. And here we have Osama. Osama Habali, only last week we received the news that he killed under torture. I feel like, again, I stuck in darkness. I cannot accept this news. I told all my friends that Osama and all missing people will still alive in my soul, will still alive in my heart, and I'll keep fighting for them. I'll keep fighting for their rights in the future until the moment that even we will back them to us, to our life again, or we have their bodies. But I will not accept this concept that they killed, and that's it. So I had this opportunity, which is great. I met Munira, and I met ICMP, and I met all those great people. I feel like we can support each other. Absolutely, we can support each other, and we can see, and we can tell all families in Syria and around the world that they are not alone. I feel I took power. Those two days, I took power from you. I feel like we are not alone in this world. I feel like we have a lot of things to do to the future. Yeah, maybe the moment of justice will not be tomorrow, but we have to prepare ourselves until this moment.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Noora, for underlining this rights-based perspective that we must have in the future, and also the importance of your shared experiences that we learned from you and that we've heard in the workshops that you've had throughout today earlier. Our next speaker is Rebecca Sjöstrand from Sweden, and your experience is somewhat different, but yet maybe you find some similarities in the perspectives, because you were a child when you lost your cousin as a result of the tsunami in Southeast Asia many years ago. And now listening to the Bosnian and Syrian experiences, is there anything that, resonates within you and that you feel that you have something in common here?
I do. I was 14 when my cousin Sandra, who was then 22, was working at a Swedish travel agency in Khao Lak in Thailand. And after the tsunami hit on the 26th of December in 2004, we couldn't get in contact with her and then reported her missing on the 27th. I can recognize myself in both Munira and Nora's story about what Munira said about the difference between a living and a dead person isn't as big as, or is bigger than a dead and a living person. Those 3 months that she was missing for before she was identified in late March of 2005 was a limbo for me. I have a hard time understanding it now, but I didn't think she was dead. I couldn't understand where she was, but I tried not to think about that. But I couldn't understand that she was dead and move on with the process of grieving until I got the news that she was identified, and when we eventually got her home. That process of having a grave to go to and to actually be able to grieve her was essential for me to, and for my family, to move on with keeping her alive inside of us instead of hoping that she'd be alive. And as Nora said, it's crucial to have that confirmation that she was dead. That limbo of 3 months, I can't remember any of it. But I also want to highlight the fact that we are in Sweden, an extremely developed country, but the Swedish authorities during those first days after the tsunami was unacceptable for a country of this caliber. The lack of information, both on location in Thailand and from the Swedish authorities back home, was heartbreaking and adding extra onto the trauma we were experiencing. My whole family was in Sweden trying to get information about Sandra, who was working in Thailand, but hearing witnesses who were affected themselves, who were part of the tsunami, that did not get any information nor any help from Swedish authorities, but had to rely on themselves, being traumatized, being injured both physically and mentally, and had to rely on themselves, on local people, the Thai people who were extremely kind, providing shelter, providing support, providing food, and also volunteers, expats living in Thailand who helped out with basic resources and with organization that the Swedish authorities did not in those first few days. And that was the outcome of my family wouldn't have changed since Sandra died on the 26th, but it didn't help with the grieving process for us to be met with this lacking empathy, lacking respect, and the fact that they said that they didn't have any information seems unbelievable coming from the Swedish authorities. It was the holidays, of course. No one could expect this kind of extent of the disaster, but to not have a delegation order, to not come into work even though it was the holidays after thousands of Swedes were caught in Thailand and Sri Lanka mainly for the Swedish people is unacceptable. And that's something I do want to lift here out of respect for those 543 Swedes who died and for the many more who were affected by this.
And the fact that there is yet no memorial for the victims of the tsunami, even though 13 years or nearly have passed.
We're getting a memorial now, but this has also been a very long process. The project didn't start until around 10 years after the disaster. And at first, even though us family members in great majority wanted the names to be put on the memorial, the Swedish authorities decided not to have the names on the memorial at first. Fortunately now, for those who leave consent, we will have the names of our family members on the memorial, which is important because 543 people are more than just numbers. These are our loved ones who we loved and continue loving.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'd like to talk with each one of you more. Can you hear me? Yes. Our next speaker, Dalal from Iraq, from the Shengal Mountains or Sinjar Mountains. You have experienced something which is so horrible that it's hard to grasp. Everyone in your family, except your father, is still in the hands of IS.
عائلتها مو ما عدد بارتا لدستي داعشني وتجيب ويا ضحية داعش ومجتمعي يزيديهم. بدي سؤالي بكم وقتين الوركشوب الفيدي إيرو وتدفيته وتتشتخويا كرنيت كان مهم تنفيسين تدفيته شو تشتيج مرة خويا كينو مهمة وتجمرة بيجي وملاحظات كتات نفيسين السر ورقة تكاريش مرة مرة بنفيس يعني مرة بيجيت إنه مستقبلي وان تشتوانت كعائلة دوان تشينو وداكو دوان بتني معي.
Good evening. I'm very grateful that I'm able to attend here and that you are listening. I have come here because I have been the victim of a situation that has included persecution, that has included genocide, rape, and homicide. I've come here to tell you about what has happened 3 years ago, 2014. In August 2014, me and my family, 7 of us, 7 of my family, and 5,000 of all of my city had been raped. And also kidnapped. Daesh had kidnapped us all, and they told us to either convert to Islam or you will die. However, many of us chose not to convert to Islam, and the only result of not converting to Islam was either to become a sex slave and persecuted and confiscated by the ISIS. They raped us, they kidnapped us, and also we had to have to work for their housekeeping, and also we had to face the trials of being brainwashed by the ISIS. Still today, there are mass graves of people whom we have still not identified. The goal and the main ambition of ISIS is to ethnically erase the Ezidi group. Nonetheless, the goal through ethnically cleansing the Yazidi race is through kidnapping and to rape the women. I have seen a lot of rape, and I have been traded off a lot of times. I did a housekeeping. I was the slave of them. They gave me the Quran to read. They gave me the Quran to read in just 1 hour. If I did not read it in 1 hour, it meant that I would be hit, or even violently affected if my brothers dishonored them and did not obey the ISIS. I have been sold almost up to 9 times. I was still a child. I was only 17 years old. I didn't understand anything. I had barely any education. I had no idea how to get out of the situation. I had suffered immensely. But I had to go through a lot to get through and to get out of the situation. But afterwards, I had been brought to Raqqa and other cities, and I was also traded and enslaved in those cities as well. Even up to today, 3,800 women and children are still in the hands of ISIS. Women and children are every day being sold off and traded off. They know that our honor is worth a lot, and they will do anything to trade it off of us. The ISIS committed all of these atrocities to us, not in knowing that we would one day be able to tell this all to you. Daesh wanted to take our honor, destroy our culture, and have nobody else to respect us. But I couldn't accept this. I need people to hear me. I need people to know what happened. I need people to know what happened to my family, to my mother and my brothers. But until today, still nothing has happened, nothing has been gained for us, and we have not received any help. I have a lot of things to tell. We still have a lot of mass graves in all of Shingal. All we want to see is the bones of them, so we can move past. I'm still waiting for my mother to reach her hand to me and tell me to go get your education. My sisters and brothers, I wish for them to get to their education one day.
The solution is how to help people. The genocide has been done to Yazidis also. We have the right, our bones to be found and the victims to be liberated. They are not died. I will not say that go get them out. They are alive and they need to be liberated. if you are protecting human rights, you need to work on that. ISIS is working just for money and killing people. دلال تشتكي قالك مهمة تجمرت بيجي والتفاصيل أجمرت بيجي مجتمعي زدي شلو شبسري وهاتي أم قالك ممنون تشجاعتها تجمرت تفاصيلها بيجي دكتور جان بيبينو
of Yazidi victims, and from your perspective, what can the world do?
It's a good question.
It's a huge question.
Yeah.
Maybe we should tell that also that you've been interviewing 1,403 victims individually.
Yes, during my work with the state government of Baden-Württemberg, my duty was to go to Iraq and examine women and girls who were in the hand of the IS and decide whether they can go to Germany for medical treatment or not. And it was not easy. So to say yes, you can go, I could say to everyone to yes, but we had very clear. It was a political decision by the German government, and they say they give us the amount of 1,000, and we have to decide 1,000. Very clear, one of the criteria was they should be in the hand of the IS. They should have any medical and psychological diseases, and the German government with his psychological, psychiatric, and medical treatment should be able to treat them. And so we tried to find them, and I examined, that's right, 1,403 persons in 2015 myself. And just give you, so I'm really thankful to be here today because my most motivation to came today and to speak to you, and thank you again by the ICMP. Just give you an example, one of our Yazidi women who had many of the children, and the Sinjaris, most of the Sinjaris are blonde and have blue eyes. And one of the IS fighter saw her 2-year-old girl. And he said, yes, I will take her with me. And he did it. And said, when she will be 9 years old, I will marry her. Rinda is her name, and she is now about 6-7 years old. Her mother, just to imagine what is going on what kind of feeling, what kind of pain has this mother every day. And this is if you came to treatment, especially post-traumatic stress disorder, which was this diagnosis by most of the women. In the case of Yazidi, it's a little different because the Yazidis face a transgeneration trauma, which means they face the last 800 years about 74th genocide. And so far, I agree with the United Nations that last year they say it is a genocide, and I hope the Swedish government, the German government, and British government will do the same and declare as a genocide, because it's systematically, as Dalal said before, they come to the village, they divide it, that each group is women, girls, married, non-married, boys between 8 and 14 years, to bring them and make child soldiers. And they killed many of men and executed them. That means if we try to treat people with a post-traumatic stress disorder or any psychological disease, and post-trauma means post is over. In this case, it is not over. Where are the missing people? Who is in the mass graves? And we have 3 types of traumata, which is very important to explain it here. We have the transgeneration traumata, which started 800 years ago. And according to my own researches, which we did 2008 in Turkey, during the Ottoman Empire, 1,008,000 Yazidis has to be converted to Islam by force. 1,200,000 Yazidis has been killed because they are Yazidis. And this happened, of course, to another minorities. I know that. It's not just a case of Yazidis. But this impact and infects the behavior in culture, in religion, in different kind of beliefs and of ritual and ceremonies. Ask any Yazidi, what do you mean with Ferman? Ferman is identically for the Yazidis' genocide and Holocaust. Everyone knows what this means. Through the storytelling, they know that. We have on the 3rd August 2015 a collective trauma because it was an attack systematically against Yazidi. And the third, of course, is the individual trauma. All of them have their own pain. And to overcome with this is psychotherapy what Dalal is doing today. Because they stand up and shouted like Dalal, like Nadia Murad, like Lambi al-Bashar. They don't want to be in the category of just a victim. And for that reason, since 2 years, I don't like use the word of victim. They are survivors. And they are fighting. And they're fighting for surviving. I have one case, this one 8-year-old girl who was sitting in front of me. And she was, like Dalal, 10 months in the hand of the IS when sold about 8 times and was raped hundreds of times during the period of 10 months. And she was sitting in front of me and asked me how people can be so cruel. I am a scientist, I'm an expert in trauma and violation, but I have no answer for this girl. I have no. But we have to find words for these people. And this is ICPM, it's another organization, and to give the right of the women, they have to stand. And we have break taboos. They don't lose honor. The IS fighter lost their honor. If they are Muslims, real Muslims, if they are human, they wouldn't do that. And this is what I want to say to my Muslims brothers and sisters. We have to stand up and say this is not Islam and you are not belong to this Islam. Not just one. And Your Majesty, you have a great job, I know that. But this is one of your jobs. And your Jordanian is going to do a very good job. And I thank you again because Jordanian is in the middle of the crisis. But we need, like these countries and youth, to stand up and speak for the real Islam and to save Yazidis, Kakais, Mandeyas, all Christian, Assyrians, Armenians. There's so wonderful history in this world. So many religions, so many cultures, like Yazidis. They have a history of 4,000 years. And they are now about 1 million people. And just one last word, because if we don't take care on these minorities, the minority is a guarantee of democracy in the Middle East. If we not can save and protect them, we will never have a democracy in the Middle East. This is our guarantee. We have to take and save them. If you go back to the history, we have a lot of minorities, ethnic groups, and they face a lot of catastrophes, genocides. Normally, sociologically, they have 2 options. After such kind of genocide, many ethnic and religion groups were not able to overcome. We don't know each about them. They are destroyed through 3-4 generations. Now the Yazidis are facing the same. They have the option, in 2 or 3 generations, we have individual, maybe a lot of Yazidis, but as a group, as a collective, not anymore. Or the second option, which I prefer, and they need but our support, through a catastrophe you can grow, you can learn, and you can change your paradigm. Through the Yazidis, it was not allowed to have any sexual contact to non-Yazidis. But the highest priest of the Yazidis, after 800 years, changed this paradigm and said, no, this is a catastrophe, these are our girls, and we are proud they came back. And I hopefully will do, because in the way of psychotherapy, we should behind them and break with taboos. Culture and religion should be help people, give them a perspective for better life, and not to suppress people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kizilhan, for underlining the importance of saving the plurality of the Middle East and also the need of psychotherapists for the region, because there is a huge lack of them. I think it's time now to give the floor to the two of the commissioners from ICMP, Judge Monageng and Dr. Surin Pitsuwan. Can we make room for them somehow? And the panelists, you can, let's see how we can arrange it now, Ylva. You can stay on, I think, Doctor, if you wish to. Please, please, you can stay here. Yes, I'd like to ask Judge Monageng to come up first. You are a judge at the International Criminal Court and also a commissioner of the ICMP. And having listened to these testimonies from a collective perspective, and also having the rights-based focus in your work, what are the challenges here, and what should be done?
Her Majesty, distinguished guests, the challenges that come with what we have just heard are so many. First of all the panelists referred to the need for justice. And as a lawyer, justice means a human right, a right that should not be compromised, a right that doesn't know when it is raining or when it is shiny. It is a right that is non-negotiable. And for us to be listening to these stories of people who cannot access this basic right is a mammoth task. All legal frameworks, whether domestic or international, dictate that missing persons are survivors, as the doctor said. And I want to bring something to our knowledge. Under customary international law, where missing persons are considered direct victims, their families are viewed as indirect victims and can, by analogy, for instance, obtain reparations. Now, in terms of the right to justice, I've been asking myself this question: what do missing persons and their families want? First of all, they want credible, fast investigations by governments, by non-governmental organizations, because those NGOs do a lot, by regional and international courts and tribunals. They want credible prosecutions and meaningful sentences where there are convictions. They want their voices to be heard. I have sat in a court, in a trial court at the ICC, and listened to 8 victims who came to the court. They were not witnesses, but they asked if they could relate their story. All they wanted was for the judges to hear them. Their evidence was not even used in the judgment. And for them, it made a difference just for somebody with that authority to be listening to them. They want empathy, not sympathy. They want understanding from us. They want us to vicariously experience their thoughts and feelings. They want strong, clear, and just laws. They want functioning, progressive judiciaries and judges. Judges who will admit evidence that has been collected by my organization, the ICMP, and use it to the benefit of the missing persons or the survivors. They want strong civil society organizations to push their cases for them. You just asked earlier, what can the world do? These are some of the things that the world can do. They want reparations. It is their human right. If I may give an example of the ICC has provision for reparations. Sadly, the fund where reparations could come from is voluntary. And it is always the odd country here, the United Kingdom here, Sweden here, there and there, here and there. You all heard recently that in the Katanga case, victims were given $250 each, which is individual reparations. And the chamber has also ordered collective reparations. And from experience, that $250 goes a long way. I mean, it's not, you are not going to make them rich, but at least there is some recognition of the pain that they have gone through. And this is my plea to states and to humanity. If only countries could clean their act and provide reparations for survivors. But having said this, all these things that I've articulated can only be attained when the rule of law is supreme. And the rule of law is a legal principle that demands that law should govern a nation rather than the nation being governed by decisions of individuals that we are seeing in this world, as has been articulated by our friends who are not accountable to anybody. And Mrs. Persons, I'm just about to finish, need the ICMP, a rights-based legal organization, an organization that has credibility, an organization that can walk into a country like Sweden and somebody listens. Now, finally, we are on an uphill battle. Some of you will remember that not so long ago, when there was pressure on the United Nations Security Council to refer the Syrian situation to the International Criminal Court, the big boys, two of them who hold the veto, said no. And as we all know, once China or America or one of the big boys says no, it is a no. And people have said that the ICC is doing nothing about the Syrian situation. But that is a situation that can only be referred to the court by the ICC, by the Security Council. So this journey is long, and I do not have an answer about what humanity can do. Humanity has failed humanity so many times. We saw Rwanda and all other situations. But I think what is important is that we shouldn't give up. We should continue, and we should try to strengthen the rule of law, especially at national level. Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, you have maybe the hard task now to summarize, and since you've been the Foreign Minister of Thailand and also the Secretary General of ASEAN, people will maybe expect that you will talk on behalf of the government side now, from the policymakers.
Well, Your Majesty, Mr. Prime Minister, fellow commissioners and fellow panelists, it is a privilege to be here with you to listen to these heartbreaking stories and narratives. But it is also extremely inspiring to hear their determination, their commitment, their passion to turn their loss, their pain, their suffering into a mission. And I'm moved by the judged words that humanity has failed humanity many, many times. But I think we are going to be here for some time yet. 7.34 billion of us, all of us in this room and more. We have to take stock. What has happened, these stories portray and reflect. And what more can we do together, even at the minimum level, with all the limitations that we have? Now, ICMP has come to the picture in Southeast Asia in the aftermath of that big catastrophe, tsunami of the Indian Ocean, where 200,000+ people lost their life in an instant. And in Thailand alone, about 5,000. In Indonesia, in Aceh, in one province, 100,000 over. So the scale of that catastrophe was extremely difficult to imagine, and it happened just like that. These are natural catastrophes that could not be predicted, but certainly could be contained in its damage, in its consequences later on. And that's exactly what ICMP did. Came to southern Thailand at the request of the Thai police force, of course with the support of the European institutions, with the funding, to work on over 1,000 bones that they could find, and could identify about 800. Out of those, 42 happened to be Swedes, and all of the Nordic and Scandinavian countries, I think about 900. Now, I think the capacity of those countries, and maybe even the lack of awareness that these are human rights, these are the obligations and the duties of the states, of the governments, to pursue, to help clarify, to bring back the rights and the justice and reparation that the survivors and the victims have had to go through. I think we have a lot of work to do to bring this sense of responsibility to government institutions, to governments. But I think we also have to be aware of the fact that not in every corner of the world the situation is the same, the capacity is the same, and the awareness is the same. So education is extremely important to bring these stories, conscience shocking stories, and then to create in them a sense of common and collective responsibility of what to do. I just whispered to the Queen, that as a Muslim, I felt part of the guilt, a lot of guilt, but I certainly disown those kind of behaviors in the name of Islam. I'm saying this while I'm fasting, standing in front of you. That is a tremendous stigma and a crisis. And I would say those who got involved into these things have mental crisis on their part. Deviance to the point of losing their humanity. So, but I have to also tell you some of the good stories that out of that catastrophe, we have these individuals and we have the stories to tell. I wish that it could be on Swedish TV. I wish that it could be on CNN. I wish that it could be on those global networks so that all of our conscience could be shaken. That would spur us to action and that would lead us to a more sensible ways and means and organizing ourselves in order to take care of these issues and respond to these issues. I share the pain of Rebecca, claiming that the response has not been quick, fast, professional, up to the level of the progress and technology that you have. But we have to be reminded of the fact that less than 2 months after the crisis in Southeast Asia tsunami, King Carl Gustaf XVI and Queen Sylvia showed up to say thank you to those hospital staff, those nurses, those police, those people, those Thai people who certainly helped comfort the victims, survivors. So I think we each have our own limitations and we each have to identify where we can make the best contribution into the situation unexpected. I am reminded after listening to these stories, particularly Noor's, that poem by John Donne, transcendental poets, English, British, no man is an island, or no woman is an island, no child is an island, no man is an island, entire of itself. Any man's death, any woman's suffering, any child's missing and loss, any family's loss of the members of its family, its clan, any man's, any woman's, any child's death or suffering or pain diminishes me. It pains me too. And every one of us should feel that pain. Because I am involved in mankind, because I am part of that 7.34 billion, looking like us, looking like me. Different tribes, different religions, different colors, different ethnic groups, but all humanity. So I think we only need to be prepared. The judge, work on the institutions, work on the conditions, work on the awareness. And I think in Southeast Asia, we have to thank ICMP for bringing to our awareness that there is such thing as a technology, that you can identify, even from fraction of bones, the persons, the identities. And this certainly brought comfort to the families. And it's not just the 42 Swedes, not just 800 that have been identified, but it signals to all of us that there is a possibility before us, if we work together, that in the future we would do better and that humanity will fail less often to humanity. Thank you very, very much.
Please stay on. Please stay on. We do have time for a 2 questions at least. Can I ask the panelists again to come up to the stage, and also Judge Monageng? And somebody has a microphone here, and here's the microphone. Who would like to ask a question here? Let's see. Please come up. Nobody wants to ask? Take the opportunity. Yes, please, in the middle. Please state your name and affiliation also.
Judge,
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Queen, Commissioners. I'm Ahmed Zayad from Embassy of Nigeria here in Sweden. I just want to bring to the fore I said bring back our girls poster there, the Chibok girls. I think everybody knows the Chibok girls and what they went through, and the efforts of the Nigerian government to bring back the girls. So far, I think we have 103 girls rescued from the Boko Haram. And it's not only the Chibok girls. We have over 20,000 missing or abducted by Boko Haram. But the government so far has almost liberated all the territories and bring back all those girls. So I just want to ask the ICMP what they are doing, because now the government is trying to rehabilitate those girls. They have been 3 years in captivity.
Yeah.
They've tried to radicalize them. In fact, a video emerged of 4 girls who said they don't want to be liberated. They want to remain with the Boko Haram insurgents.
Thank
And,
you for your
I want
question.
to know what the ICMP is doing to help in liberating those girls.
Shall we take one more question? You were first in the middle, in the second row from the top.
Hello. I have a question for Dalal Ali Kero. I'd like to applaud your courage, and I'm sorry about the suffering you have gone through. How secure was your community when Saddam Hussein was still in power? And do you blame the American invasion of Iraq for what has happened to your community since then? Thank you.
Okay. So, who wants to take the call for this?
maybe the director of the commission, please.
No, thank you very much. Just to answer the very important question about Boko Haram and Bring Back Our Girls campaign, ICMP is a global organization, but we're also voluntarily funded. So we are trying to help in Nigeria. There are so many places in the world where we want to work, and we would encourage those who do provide support to help us in this endeavor. So Nigeria would definitely be one of these places. But right now, we haven't received the support that we need to be able to go to Nigeria. But I think the comments that were made here this evening by our commissioners, Surin, Pitsuwan, and Judge Monageng, really do speak to the efforts that we try to engage in with governments to ensure that persons are found, to work with the international community to ensure that persons are found. So this is an effort that we would like to engage in. Maybe we can talk after the meeting. Thank you.
Dalal, do you wish to answer the question about the U.S. invasion and Saddam Hussein? Or do you prefer to pass it over to somebody else?
متياس بيجم وقت صدام سر حكم داوي عمري ما هاش سالبون.
When Saddam was in power, I was 8 years old, so I don't remember very much. When Saddam was in the power, we as the Ezidi people were living in peace. When Saddam was in power, the rise of the Ezidi were still very minor, but our lives were still going on very normally. After Saddam lost the power in Iraq, there was a chaotic scene going on politically. Our identity was on the line. A lot of problems were occurring, and I have still no idea why the problem occurred.
Thank you. I think there are enough stories, testimonies from us to...
Mislim da je jako puno priča, stvari koje smo čuli i o kojima bismo mogli čuti. Želim samo da čujem da li povjerenici, ambasador Miller želi da kaže nešto za kraj. Ambasador Miller je predsjedavajući kolegija povjerenika ICMP-a. Nisam imao namjeru bilo šta govoriti, ali toliko su me dirnule ove prezentacije da bih ipak želio reći nekoliko.
Was an effort to put a human face on an issue that occurs in just about every country in the world. And none of us are immune, as Rebecca and her colleagues learned when her family, her cousin was working in Thailand and people were on their vacations. This is an issue that I was a diplomat once, and many of my colleagues, several of my colleagues, fellow commissioners, were diplomats, and we worked issues. But this is an issue that needs to have a human face, and I think that's what we saw today. It needs to be understood. My colleague, former Foreign Minister Pitsuwan, said it well. It needs to be understood in all of its manifestations, and my colleague Sanji as well. This is an issue that is about getting information out. It's about justice. It's about reparations. It's about, most importantly, closure. ICMP was supposed to go out of business after we had, as Her Majesty said, after we had found 80% or 70% identified, helped identify 70% of, and I'm not going to use the word victim. Where's Jan? There you are. I learned that a while back. These are not victims. And the survivors are not victims either, because that gives them an aspect that I refuse, just like you, to believe. We were supposed to go out of business after we helped identify 70% of those who were missing, went missing in the Balkans, and 90%, as Munira said, from Srebrenica. But unfortunately, missing is a call that we hear around the world. Whether it's the tsunami, whether it's even soldiers in Norway from World War II, whether it's the victims, or excuse me, those who went missing and we had a hard time identifying in the United States when Hurricane Katrina hit. We all are part of this. Two last things, if I may. Rebecca, I was really moved by what you were saying about the lack of responsiveness of your government. I've been the government for 30 years of my life, And sometimes we just don't know. And I suspect that was the answer there. And to those of us who have to provide answers, sometimes the best thing we can do until we get the answer or more information is be honest and say, we don't know. Last, but by no means least, I was extremely moved. I never take notes at any of these presentations. But you said two things, Jan, that just will stick with me forever. And that is that culture and religion should help, not hurt people. And that's really, really important. You also said, somewhat optimistically, that there will never be democracy, and I would say around the world, in all the countries where there's a lack of democracy, until those countries take real steps to protect their minorities. As I said, this was an extremely moving presentation. I just wanted to share with you a couple of the notes that I took that will stay with me forever. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming here. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your narratives with us. Thank you, all the commissioners, for coming here. And after Ambassador Miller's speech, there is no need to add any other further remarks. Just thank you all.